Hi there, Will here, and today I'd like to talk to you about the Mamiya 7, a camera that I've owned for a tad over 4 years and have some thoughts on. You've probably already heard quite a bit about the Mamiya 7 because it is a legendary camera. I mean, every steezy photographer out there, well, not every, but a decent amount of the steezy photographers out there have owned or do own one of these and use it to make work. I mean, there's this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and even this guy. And all of them swear by it, about the legendary optics and ergonomics and it's lightweight, but is that all there is to it? I suppose I'll start this out the same way I did my RB67 review, which is to say that I've owned it for 4 years, and in those 4 years it has been repaired 3 times. All 3 of those repairs were on the advanced lever, or the advanced lever mechanism, because the Mamiya 7 has an issue, and it's not an issue unique to my example, where the advanced lever will tweak out. There's a little spring, I think, that sort of slips off of where it's meant to connect to, and it's connected to the film counter, the frame counter, and if the frame counter isn't working, the camera isn't going to clock that it needs to let you take another picture. So even though you can advance the film onwards, it's not going to let you actuate the shutter because the frame counter hasn't spoken to whatever it needs to speak to in there in order to let you take the picture. So that's the issue I've had. The 3rd time it was repaired now, the technician modified that spring because apparently the ones that they come with are quite weak. So now, hopefully, that issue is gone forever. The only other issue I've had with it is some slight light leaks, but they're not like intense light leaks that actually expand onto the frame. They're just along the little film border, and to be honest, that might also just be down to the winding mechanism not tightening the spool enough so that when you expose it to the light, it just seeps in a bit. To give you some technical insights into it, I'm going to speak about the Mamiya 7 versus this really quick. I think the only true difference, the biggest difference between this Mamiya 7 II and the Mamiya 7 I is some adjustments to the rangefinder. I'm pretty sure there's supposed to be increased clarity in this example, and it's got a multiple exposure setting. Speaking of the rangefinder, this is a rangefinder focusing camera. So you have 2 patches in there that you line up in order to get what you're trying to have in focus to be a consistent shape and form. And then things should be in focus. I know some people struggle with that, but personally, I've only had a couple issues trying to sort that out ever, and it is quite easy to get the hang of. And its metering system is a little patch. It's sort of a teeny tiny area that actually gets metered for to the bottom right of the actual rangefinder patch, and you need to keep that in mind when you're trying to suss out the light. Besides that, the only differences that I'm aware of are the fact that the Mamiya 7 II comes in champagne gold and black, and the Mamiya 7 is silver, and also that they made some modifications to the light curtain, which I've seen some misinformation about online as well. The mechanism isn't designed to be closed so that you don't get dust on the lens when you're changing film. It's designed to close when you want to change lenses so that you don't get light on the film itself. As you can see, it's a light shield curtain, which is nifty. They're sort of the pinnacle of hype cameras on the internet for film photography, and they have been for a number of years. Fortunately, I got mine before that really took off. I mean, they've always been sought after cameras and they've always been expensive, but towards the end of 2016 there was an event by the name of George that put out a very enthusiastic video on the Mamiya 7, and the prices sort of skyrocketed from then. I was fortunate enough to pick mine up before that. I got it mint in box, brand new, for £2,000 I think, and whilst that is still a significant amount of money, it's significantly less than you would pay now for a brand new example, mint in box. The reason I decided to pick it up mint in box was because I figured these cameras are going to age and they're electronic, and you hear horror stories about people having them and them just bricking and stopping to work. And in my mind, owning the latest possible, newest possible example I could possibly get my hands on would be the best place to go from, because then I know if anything goes wrong, I had a good starting point. The story of how I gained an interest in the Mamiya 7 is actually quite a funny one and somewhat ironic. I saw a picture on Tumblr in like 2013 and I messaged the guy who'd posted it, the original poster, because you can go back to the original poster no matter how many times things have been reposted on Tumblr, I think. And I asked him, what camera did you take this on, because I'd never seen a picture that looked like that before. And it was a film picture, taken on Portra 400 probably, overexposed 2-stops, like super pastel colors, no real shadows of I don't know, some sort of towny American suburban scene. And I'd never seen a picture like that before in 2013 and it blew my mind. And then in 2015, 15 maybe, when I started like studying photography, I went and did a short course at Central St. Martin's and I came upon Richard Moss's work. I'd seen the pictures before, those pink aerochrome jungle pictures, but I looked into them a bit more and found out he'd used a Mamiya 7 to make those. And at that point, I decided that I really wanted to own one day. This camera has some amazing plus sides to it. The lenses are pretty much unparalleled. The only lens I've ever used where I got similar results was the Hasselblad CFE 80mm f2.8 Zeiss planar lens, which is a sublime piece of glass. And when I'm talking about similar results and how spectacular these lenses are, I mean in print and blowing them up super big to actually see what the details are like, because if you're looking at a review of someone talking about this camera and they've scanned the negatives on an Epson V600 and they say, wow, these are sublime, I've never seen stuff like this, that makes no sense, but I'll get to that. The lenses are sublime and it's super lightweight. Those are the two big plus sides. The downsides are the fact that it is incredibly expensive these days, and the expense of it is far beyond what I reckon the image quality and functionality of it are worth. Mainly because if this thing dies, it's dead and gone. You can't get it repaired. Well, I say that. You can probably get it repaired if it breaks in the right way at Precision Camera Works in America, but for me that's not an option because sending it to America and getting it back would probably cost more than I'd be willing to pay for a repair anyway. And a big factor of how good the pictures are that you get out of a camera like this, sort of the Mamiya 7, the Plowball Makina, any camera that is meant to have legendary optics like Hasselblad CFE lenses, all of that, it depends entirely on how well it is scanned. And to me, if you're not drum scanning or Imicon scanning or DSLR scanning very well, then there's no point in having a camera like this, because you're not actually going to get the benefits that you're hoping to get out of it scanning it on a flatbed. You can get very, very good results out of it with a dedicated lab scanner like a Fuji Frontier or a Noritsu, but in terms of how good people say these lenses are and the benefits that you're meant to be able to achieve through using them, you're not really going to see any sort of impact on how things look in your work unless you're scanning them very well. And scanning them very well costs a lot of money. My advice would be, if you're wanting to pick one of these up to try and progress your career or make incredibly strong, high quality work, that is a good idea. But if you're wanting to do that immediately, you're going to need to pick one of these up and also a very good scanner, like an Imicon or a drum scanner or a very, very good DSLR scanning setup, because the variations in quality when it comes to DSLR scanning are immense, and if you want to get your money's worth out of a camera like this, you're going to really need to know what you're doing with that. Lab scans, very good Noritsu scans, will definitely show you some of the results that you can get out of these, but the main benefit of a camera that has a lens this sharp and this clear with this excellent color rendition is being able to print it properly. And if you're going to print a negative, you want to have it scanned very well. Another downside to them is the parallax error, because I was not aware of this really when I picked it up, but as soon as you get, like, say, within 5 meters of something, there starts to be a parallax shift because of the way the rangefinder works. The closer you get, the less the picture that you're trying to compose is actually going to be what results, because the lens is pointing in a different direction to the rangefinder. So that's something to keep in mind, along with the minimum focusing distance, which is not ideal. It's 1 meter, which is not a lot, especially if you're trying to take pictures of people or portraits or something like that. There's not really much room to work with that, especially taking into account that parallax error. It means that if you're close to someone, they're going to have to be at least 1 meter away for them to be in focus, and then your proximity to them is going to impact what shows up on the frame. So who is this immensely expensive camera actually for then? Well, I personally think the only real justification one can have for it these days is if you're a very high-end photographer who's already making a decent amount of money doing travel work, and you know you like shooting on a 6-7 camera, and you can justify the expense of owning Mamiya 7 to take on your adventures around the world with you, because it truly shines when it comes to landscape work or aspects and scenery of far-off places and that sort of thing. You can make portrait style work with it, sort of half body shots, full body shots, and even get like a decently close like crop of a person with the 1 meter minimum focusing distance. But in terms of using it as a camera as a hobbyist, I don't really reckon it's worth it currently with the prices and all. And the prices are probably just going to keep going up from here, because I mean, the older they get, the more of them are going to break, and the fewer of them are going to be in working condition, which is unfortunate. But you might still score a deal, and if you can, I definitely would pick one of these up. I mean, if you got money burning a hole in your pocket and a deep desire to make lovely photographs, then the Mamiya 7 is a very, very strong camera to use to do that. To finish things off, I just wanted to take a moment to extend my sincerest gratitude to the members of the YouTube film photography community who have so warmly welcomed me and shown people my ongoings. Guys like Brian Burks and Bray Hunziker and Tom Humble and Nico from Nico's Photography Show gave me a really solid introduction to the ongoings around here. And thank you to all of you who hang around and watch what I get up to. I'm glad you find it enjoyable.